Picture this. England, the year 1381. The air is thick with tension. The Black Death has swept through the land, leaving a third of the population gone. For the survivors, the world has been turned upside down. Labours are scarce, and for the first time, the common peasant has leverage. They can demand better wages, better conditions. They have a taste of freedom, and they like it. But the lords, the knights, the kings, they're not so thrilled. They see their power, their wealth, their entire way of life slipping through their fingers. So they fight back. They pass laws to freeze wages, forcing people back into the old ways of servitude. And then, to fund their wars in France, they levy a new tax, a poll tax. Every single person over the age of 15 has to pay, rich or poor. For a simple farmer, this isn't just an inconvenience. It's a catastrophe. It's the spark that will light the fire. In a small village in Essex, a tax collector named John Bampton arrives, demanding more money than the villagers have already paid. An argument breaks out. Voices are raised. A local baker, a man named Thomas Baker, steps forward and tells Bampton that his village has paid its due and will pay no more. The collector's men try to arrest Baker, and that's when it happens. The village erupts. Farmers, blacksmiths, and thatchers grab their tools, pitchforks, axes, and bowsons drive the king's men out of town. The rebellion has begun. Word of this defiance spreads like wildfire across the English countryside, from Essex to Kent, then Suffolk, Norfolk, and beyond. This isn't just a riot, it's a movement, and it has leaders. Enter Wat Tyler. We don't know much about him before the revolt, but his name would soon be on everyone's lips. He's charismatic, bold, and he channels the fury of the people. Alongside him is a radical priest named John Ball. For years, Ball has been preaching a dangerous idea, that all people are created equal in the eyes of God. He famously asked, when Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? In other words, where were the lords and ladies at the dawn of creation? This message resonates deep in the hearts of the oppressed. They aren't just fighting against a tax, they're fighting for a new world. The rebels begin to march, thousands of them. Their numbers swell as they move from village to village. They burn court records, the legal documents that tie them to their lords. They open prisons and liberate those jailed for debt or defying the labor laws. Their target is not just property, but the very symbols of their oppression. They storm castles and manor houses, not always to loot, but to destroy the paperwork that binds them. This is an organized, targeted uprising with a clear goal: to speak with the king himself. Their destination is London. The capital is in a state of panic. The city gates are ordered shut, but the rebels find allies within the walls. Sympathetic citizens open the gates, and the peasant army pours into London. The city is theirs. They marched to the Tower of London, one of the most formidable fortresses in Europe. Inside is the 14-year-old King Richard II, along with his chief advisors, the men the rebels blame for their suffering. Archbishop Simon of Sudbury and the treasurer Robert Hales are trapped. The young king, in an act of incredible bravery, or perhaps desperation, agrees to meet the rebels. He rows out onto the Thames to speak with them at a place called Mile End. The crowd is immense, a sea of angry faces. Wat Tyler presents their demands: an end to serfdom, a pardon for all rebels, and the removal of the king's treacherous advisors. Incredibly, King Richard agrees to everything. He signs charters granting their demands, hoping this will disperse the crowd. For a moment, it seems like the peasants have won. It seems like the world has truly changed. But while the king is at Mile End, a group of rebels breaks into the Tower of London. They find Archbishop Sudbury and Robert Hales hiding in the chapel. They are dragged out and, in a brutal act of street justice, are beheaded on Tower Hill. The heads are placed on pikes and paraded through the city. The rebellion has crossed a line. It's no longer just a protest. It's regicide in all but names. The goodwill, the small chance of a peaceful resolution, is evaporating. The next day, King Richard agrees to a second meeting, this time at Smithfield, just outside the city walls. It's here that the story takes its most dramatic turn. Wat Tyler rides forward to speak with the king alone. Accounts of what happened next differ, but the gist is this: Tyler, filled with confidence from his victories, behaves with what the nobles see as incredible arrogance. He treats the king as an equal, making further demands. An argument breaks out between Tyler and one of the king's men. Swords are drawn. The Lord Mayor of London, William Walworth, strikes Tyler, wounding him. Another of the king's squires finishes the job, running Wat Tyler through with his sword. The rebel leader slumps from his horse, dead in front of his army. The crowd gasps. Thousands of archers raise their bows, ready to unleash a volley of arrows that would undoubtedly kill the king and his entire retinue. The history of England hangs in the balance, right there in that moment. And then the 14-year-old king does something extraordinary. He spurs his horse and rides directly towards the rebel army. Alone, he shouts, "Sirs, will you shoot your king? I am your captain. I am your leader. Follow me." It's a gamble of epic proportions. The rebels are stunned. Their leader is dead, and now the king himself is offering to lead them. Confused and uncertain, they lower their bows. They follow him out into the fields, away from the city. The moment of crisis is over, but the king's promise was a lie. Once the rebel army was dispersed, the royal authorities moved in. The pardons were revoked. The charters were declared void. Royal armies marched into the countryside to hunt down the remaining rebels. John Ball was captured, tried, and brutally executed. Thousands of others met a similar fate. The revolt was crushed with ruthless efficiency. The lords were back in control. So, did they fail? On the surface, yes. Their leaders were killed. Their demands were ignored, and the old order was restored. But history is more complicated than that. The memory of the revolt lingered. The poll tax was abandoned and never tried again in that form for centuries. The ruling class had been terrified. They had looked into the abyss and seen a world without them. Though serfdom wasn't officially abolished, its decline accelerated. Landlords were now far more cautious about pushing their tenants too far. The Peasants' Revolt of 1381 was a bloody, dramatic, and ultimately tragic failure. But it was also a landmark moment. It was the first time in English history that the common people had risen up on a massive scale to demand their rights. They showed that the established order was not unshakable. They planted a seed of an idea that power doesn't just flow from the top down, but can also rise from the bottom up. And that idea would echo through the centuries to come. Thanks for journeying back in time with me today. It's a powerful reminder that history is made not just by kings and queens, but by ordinary people who dare to demand a better world. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the most exciting moments of the past. Let me know in the comments what historical event you'd like to explore next. Until then, stay curious.